Why do enlightened people walk away without saying goodbye? It sounds cold, doesn't it? As though awakening makes one indifferent to those still sleeping. But it isn't indifference. See, it's understanding. When a person truly awakens, they begin to see that clinging, even in love, is a form of fear. Enough. The awakened heart does not need to announce its departures, for it knows there is nowhere to depart to. It recognizes that beginnings and endings are human inventions, marks drawn upon the endless river of existence. To say goodbye is to believe there was ever a separation, that we were once together and now apart. But in truth, we are waves on the same sea. How can one wave say farewell to another when the tide itself keeps moving? The enlightened person walks away quietly, not because they don't care, but because they do. They know that trying to hold on, to explain, to make sense of the mystery, only traps both souls in illusion. You see, when the mind awakens, it perceives the world differently. What once appeared as loss now feels like flow. What once demanded closure now simply dissolves into acceptance. The awakened one no longer clings to the idea of relationships as permanent fixtures. They see them as meeting points of consciousness, brief dances of form within the eternal. A butterfly does not mourn the flower it leaves behind. It simply follows the wind. But to the unawakened eye, this can seem cruel. How can they leave so easily? We ask. How can they disappear without a word? Yet the silence of the enlightened is not neglect, it is reverent. For they know that true connection never depended on proximity or words. It was never in the hands or the eyes. It was always in the space between. Imagine the moon reflecting on a lake. When the wind moves the surface, the reflection disappears. Has the moon left? Of course not. It was never in the water to begin with. So it is with the enlightened soul. They walk away from situations, from people, from noise, not out of rejection, but out of remembrance. They remember that all meetings are temporary shapes of the same timeless essence, that what they love has never been lost, only changed its form. When one awakens, goodbyes become unnecessary, because nothing ever truly ends. Every farewell is merely a pause in the great conversation between the one and itself. And if you listen closely in that silence after someone has gone, you can still feel them. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as the same living presence that beats within your own heart. For awakening is not about leaving others behind, it's about realizing that there were never others to begin with. When one begins to see through the illusion of separateness, the very idea of saying goodbye becomes unnecessary. For who is there to leave, and who remains behind? It is all the same consciousness, shifting its form, playing out a new scene in the great theater of being. You see, most of what we call love in this world is really attachment. Now, quiet insistence that someone or something should remain the same for our comfort. We want permanence in a universe that refuses to sit still. We write promises upon flowing water and then cry when the letters fade. The enlightened person has simply stopped writing. They have understood that love cannot possess, because possession is the opposite of love. Love is space. It gives everything its freedom. So when they walk away without saying goodbye, it is not because they love less. It is because they finally understand what love truly is. It does not cling, it does not bargain. It allows everything to be as it is. There's a profound gentleness in this, if you can feel it. It's like a feather drifting from an open hand, carrying exactly where the wind intends. But to those still tangled in desire and fear, this gentleness looks like indifference. We think they've moved on, or they don't care. But perhaps they have only moved inward, to a place where caring is no longer ownership, where connection doesn't depend on communication, where presence is no longer measured in miles or minutes. Let me put it this way. When you awaken, your relationships cease to be cages. They become windows. You stop holding people and start seeing through them, seeing the same light shining from every pair of eyes, every creature, every leaf trembling in the wind. And because you see that same light everywhere, you cannot cling to any single form of it. You realize that loving one person truly means loving the whole world through them. And so when they leave, or when you must go, it is not an ending. Gears expansion. Love widens until it fills everything. You cannot lose what you have become. That's why enlightened people don't dramatize their departures. They don't need to close a chapter or make a speech. They understand that what is real between souls needs no ceremony, no conclusion. When a candle lights another and then is blown out, Has its light vanished? No, it burns on in the flame it kindled. The enlightened one knows this. They see the continuity beneath all appearances, the eternal flame that no wind can extinguish. Enough, and perhaps this is the greatest kindness of all, to leave quietly, to dissolve like mist at dawn, trusting that love does not require presence to endure. It is not bound by time or distance. It is the thread that weaves the fabric of the universe together. Those who awaken to this truth no longer cling to form. They become like the wind, touching everything, belonging nowhere, and yet always home. And if you listen with the ear of the heart, you'll find that their silence is not absence seeks communion. It says without words, I am still here, just not in the way you knew me. Because once you awaken, you see that goodbyes were never real. There was only ever one eternal meeting wearing 1,000 faces. When someone awakens, they begin to move differently in the world, not in body, but in presence. Theirs is a quieter rhythm, a softer step, like wind through tall grass, or a tide that comes and goes without announcement. They no longer seek to convince or to be understood, because they see at last that truth is not something that can be transferred by words, but something each being must awaken to in their own time, in their own way. To the one still dreaming, the awakened seem distant, aloof, perhaps even cold. But this is not distance, it is depth. It is the stillness of a mountain that no longer rushes down to the valley to explain its height. The enlightened person walks away without saying goodbye because they have already said goodbye to everything, into the idea of themselves. Their every step is a farewell, and their every breath a homecoming. It is not that they lack emotion, quite the opposite. They have felt everything so deeply that it burned away all pretense, all attachment, all boundaries. They have loved the world so much that they could no longer hold any single fragment of it apart from the rest. When you awaken, you see that every encounter, every friendship, every heartbreak was the universe speaking to itself in disguise. Every meeting was already complete, and every parting already written into the pattern. The awakened do not walk away to escape you. They simply follow the rhythm of that pattern. They move with the flow that once terrified them. Will not cling to the past because they have seen that time is a mirage. They do not hold on to faces because they know every face is the same face wearing new expressions. It's like watching a sunset. You don't ask the sun to stop at the horizon. You let it go because you trust it will rise again in another time, another place, another form. That trust is what enlightenment feels like, a deep, unshakable faith in the rhythm of existence. And so the awakened one moves on quietly, without resistance, not as one abandoning others, but as one being carried by a tide larger than choice. They leave not because they have grown tired of the world, but because they have finally realized that they are the world, and the world, being infinite, cannot stay still for long. There's a peculiar beauty in that disappearance, a grace that words cannot capture enough. It is the same grace you see in autumn leaves, letting go of the branch, falling gently, without regret, without fear of where they will land. They know that what they are returning to is not depthy, is soil. It is root, it is renewal. And perhaps that's what every enlightened being is doing, returning quietly to the source, dissolving into what they have always been. You might think they've left, but in truth they've only changed their form of presence. They are in the silence that follows the conversation, in the breeze that brushes your cheek, in the stillness that fills your chest when you finally stop searching for the awakened. Every goodbye is a return to unity. Every departure is an arrival. Every ending is the beginning, seen from another side. To awaken is to see that there was never a journey, only motion, never a loss, only change, never a goodbye, only transformation. And once you know this, you can no longer say goodbye either. You can only bow, to the mystery, to the moment, to the magnificent impermanence of it all. So when the enlightened one walks away without saying goodbye, it is not because they have disappeared, it is because they have dissolved. They have slipped beyond the need for endings, beyond the dance of holding and releasing. They have become what was always moving, the silence beneath the sound, the stillness beneath the steps. You see, awakening is not about gaining anything. It is about shedding everything that was never truly you. What the stories, the names, the constant reaching, what remains is not a person, but presence itself. Vast, quiet, radiant, and presence cannot say goodbye. How could the ocean bid farewell to the wave? It is there, in every crest and crash, in every ripple and calm. The wave may rise and vanish, but the water remains so too, the enlightened. They rise among us as teachers, lovers, friends, strangers, and when they go, we think they have left, but they have only returned to the still ocean from which they came. They have not gone anywhere, they have simply stopped pretending to be a single wave. The real farewell, if there ever was one, happens long before they leave. It happens in the quiet recognition that everything we hold must pass, not as punishment but as perfection. The awakened have accepted this fully. They no longer resist the passing of moments, the turning of pages, the death of what has served its time. To awaken is to trust impermanence completely, to bow to the great rhythm that makes all things appear and vanish, knowing it is one and the same movement. And when you understand this, you too begin to let go. You stop chasing explanations. You stop demanding closure. You stop fearing the silence that follows someone's departure. And in that silence, you find them again, because they were never outside you. They were the part of you that was ready to return to stillness. So if someone walks away from your life quietly without a word, do not be so quick to fill that silence with grief. Listen instead. Listen to the space they leave behind. You might hear it breathing. You might feel it shimmering with the same life that moves the stars. For in that space, life is whispering the same truth it has whispered since the beginning. Nothing is lost, nothing is gone, nothing ever says goodbye. There are only changes in form, shifts in rhythm, movements in the great dance of being. And when you see this, truly see it, you realize that the enlightened never left you. They have simply become the wind that carries your breath, the sun that warms your skin, the awareness that looks out through your eyes. In walking away, they have not turned their back on life. They have become life itself. So let them go as the tree lets go of the leaf, as the ocean releases the wave, as the heart releases the breath. Not with sorrow, but with reverence. Because to awaken is not to hold on, it is to finally, gracefully disappear into everything. And when you do, you will understand why enlightened people walk away without saying goodbye. Because in truth, they never leave.